Okay, thanks. So welcome again, everyone. So we have a couple of special guests tonight. I'm very pleased to have, and we're going to switch up the agenda a little bit to accommodate Supervisor Alcorn's schedule. Walter Alcorn, supervisor from the Hunter Mill District, is going to speak to us for a few minutes about the county school guard crossing program, which we've discussed on and off over the last year or so, particularly through budget proceedings and whatnot. So Walter has an update for us on that. And then we're going to turn things over to the Fairfax County Police Department. Bob Blakely, Major Scott Colwell, and some of their colleagues are going to give all of us an update on the county's speed safety camera programs. Both those that you're probably familiar with that have been put up recently in school zones and construction zones, but also the new school bus arm safety camera programs. These programs are legislative priorities for us. We've been working in Richmond to try and get their authority expanded, so we're really interested in how they're working here in the county. We're looking forward to those updates. I haven't asked Walter, but the police department is happy to take questions as well at the end, so we'll allow some time for that as well. After we get through that, we'll go through some other things, just some updates on Fairfax, our chapter's activities, opportunities for advocacy. There's a few corridor studies open for comment, et cetera. Those are in the agenda, which you can look at. But without further ado, I want to turn things over to our guests. So I'll throw it to you, Walter. You have the floor. Thank you very
Thank,
much.
thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate that. First of all, want to thank this group for all the work and advocacy over the past few years. I see Mike just joined. You guys are definitely moving the needle. So I very much appreciate all that you're doing to keep this in the forefront of our minds on the Board of Supervisors, but also, frankly, for your persistent and constructive engagement on these topics. It's extremely helpful. So I am going to talk a little bit about school crossing guards. And I have to say, Chief Blakely is probably more knowledgeable on this than I am. So at some point, I may defer any questions to him or anything I say that might not be completely accurate. Chief Blakely, is that all right?
Yes, sir. Happy to
Oh,
help.
okay, good, good, good. And by the way, thank you for having them on to talk about the speed camera program. I do have to drop off at 7 o'clock, but that's also another one of my favorite subjects. So I may stick around for a few minutes until I have to jump to my other meeting then. School crossing guards. Um, I think everybody is aware we have um, perhaps it's unique. If it's not unique, it's one of the very few in the country, the programs where we not only have a dedicated group of school crossing guards, but we also back up those school crossing guards with active duty police officers whenever there is a vacancy or when one of the school crossing guards is not available. So this does put significant strain on our police officers whenever an officer is dedicated to the school crossing, any particular school crossing. They are not available for any other calls, for any calls, and they have to stick there. It's not a very efficient use of our police resources, to say the least. So, with that in mind, we've been looking, and our police department has been on point for this, but looking at how we could have the system operate a little better going forward. So we had a couple of, we had one Board of Supervisors safety and security meeting last year where the idea of actually contracting out the school crossing guards completely was discussed based on feedback from the Board of Supervisors. The police department began exploring a different way of doing that, which would be to use vendors to back up our school crossing guard. So basically, keep the school guard crossing guard program, and then use vendors to back up whenever there's a vacancy, so our active duty officers didn't have to go cover those crossings. So that's one thing, and that process, I understand, is still being explored. The second related piece happened was initiated earlier this year in a board matter where the board asked the police department to look into creating possibly a civilianized part of the police department. Doesn't exist now, but there was a let me make sure I get this right. Um, the um, the board asked staff, the county executive and staff, to look into establishing a community safety officer program. So it would be a new type of officer in Fairfax County. It would handle non-emergency things, like parking tickets, parking violations. Potentially, school crossing duties could be part of that. Um, and so, for both of these ideas, they both have been put into motion about the same time. And my understanding is that we're going to be getting a report back from the police department early next year to our board safety and security committee on how we're going to at least have a discussion about how to continue the school crossing guard service and what either of those or maybe some hybrid approach might be what we would want to go forward with into the future. That said, we still have our program, the same program that we've been operating, and the police department's been operating for, gosh, decades. And I do just want to throw in there, and I'm sure Chief Blakely will back me up on this, but want to really give a shout out to our school crossing guards and the work they've done. They are a really important part of our local service providers. And I know, boy, I've heard from a lot of moms who want to make sure that we continue to provide that service, and so we continue to do that as we explore potentially more efficient ways. Chief Blakely, did I leave anything important out?
I tell you that's better than I could have said it, Supervisor Alcorn. I appreciate the support, and I'll echo your sentiment that our school crossing guards are unsung heroes many times, but they enhance public safety significantly by doing what they do for the police department, and we're glad to keep having them to help us out.
Great. So with that, Chris, happy to
Okay.
answer any questions or at least field any. And if I can't answer,
Okay. Well, I'll take the first one, and then people are welcome to raise their hands or just speak up if they have questions. I guess I'm just curious, Walter, the two sort of models that are being explored, the private vendor contractor versus the sort of civilianized force. Are there local neighboring jurisdictions that have used those models that you're looking at to learn
yeah, there
from?
absolutely have. And actually, Chief Blakely, off the top
Yeah.
of your head, can you tell us about some of those?
Yeah, and let me fill you in where we're at. So we went through the competitive procurement process over the last few months. That was completed, and a company, I think they may have recently changed names, but their original name was the Crossing Guard Company. Not too difficult to find in the yellow pages, but so they won the RFP and have begun services. So last checked, I believe this morning we had 15 school crossings covered with the new vendor. So they're very much, as they and I think in almost every area of the county. So as they hire on staff in accordance with our agreement, they're starting to plug them in at some of our crossing locations. That happens to be the same company that the city of Alexandria contracted slightly before us. So they started doing this about a year ago. I think they still have only, I think the last time I checked was somewhere between 10 and 20 crossing guards that they use with that company. But our intention is, we have 300 and over 340 school crossings a day. Half of those are in the morning, half of those are in the afternoon. 90 of those are covered by police officers. So despite having, as many crossing guards as we have, and they're able to handle a great number, but about 90 a day, 45 in the morning and 45 at night, are covered by police officers. So that's 15 less police officers now that are stuck on a crossing. And when I say stuck, I mean, it's an absolute priority for us to do that. It's so much so that if a police officer is on a school crossing and a robbery is happening 2 blocks away, they cannot leave. So we take, that role of crossing our kids at school zones very seriously, but we definitely believe that there are some better suited folks that can handle it so that our police officers can be free to respond to those emergencies.
Great, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Feel free to unmute and speak up. There's not too many of us tonight. Okay, I guess you knocked it out of the park, you guys.
Actually, Chris, let me, if I could just ask Assistant Chief Blakely one question on the board matter item for the Community Safety Officer Program. Is that coming to the board early next year as well?
It is, Supervisor Alcorn. We've been talking about that a little bit. I know on my end we were pushing ahead as fast as we could with the crossing guard vendor, but I think it's the January, if I'm not mistaken, safety and security meeting when we come back to the board. But I'll double check on that and get you a solid answer.
Okay, and there may be some other things. The reason I asked, there may be some other things that are relevant to this group, depending upon how that or if that moves forward, particularly in relation to public education, and there may be some other outreach-related things that this group could potentially do, and maybe even some coordination. I don't know. I mean, as Chief Blakely said, that's still under review, but that might become more relevant for this group as well, too.
That's right.
Great, thanks. We'll certainly stay involved. Thank you very much, Walter. Obviously, you're welcome to stay around as long as you can. I appreciate you fitting us into your schedule.
Chris, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump in for a sec. John,
yeah.
Okay.
Sure, John.
So I know in the past you folks were working on trying to identify legislation that would expand the use of the automated cameras for speed enforcement. Is that something that we've identified or you've identified, for this coming, session in January? Is there a bill worth backing that would expand the use to, dangerous, areas where speeding is known, dangerous travel is known, basically, hotspots, I guess it were, as far as dangerous situations.
Yeah, John, Chief, let me jump in on that one. That's actually a good transition, I think, to what you're going to talk about. On the legislative side, yes, we will be looking at bills. I have not seen any specific legislation for next year. There was legislation that was very active last year. There were some more technical issues. I think it went up on the rocks. And by the way, it was our own Delegate Holly Siebold that introduced that bill, who's also a constituent of the Hunter Mill District. Go Hunter Mill. And she and I have also talked about this. I think one of the things she was very concerned about was some other jurisdictions around the state that have been using speed cameras to raise revenue. And let's face it, we all live close to the District of Columbia. DC's been doing that for years.
Absolutely.
And it drives me crazy. I don't know, it probably drives others crazy as well, to think that you would use something that's that important for public safety, as a revenue, is predominantly, if not predominantly, at least in a major way, as a revenue generator. So that was where I think it ran up on the rocks. I'm hopeful that this year we'll be able to work through those issues and get more authority to do it. And Mike might have some other insight or thoughts on that too.
Right. I know for us in Great Falls, we have, some particular challenges in that our roads tend to be narrow country roads.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult, even if the police enforcement is there, which I know that they've really sort of bent over backwards this year to try to help with the speeding. And, and of course the cars of Katie's doesn't help. But they've bent over backwards to try to, identify speeding areas and get enforcement going on out there. But, one of the problems is that on a lot of the roads is really not a safe space for people to be pulled over. So you're trading one danger for another. So, which I think the automated, process would actually help with that quite a bit. So it is something where, I think a lot of us are very interested in this being expanded beyond just the schools. And obviously the schools should absolutely be the first ones to get them. But, beyond that, there are some other hotspot areas that, Georgetown Pike has had many fatalities over the last couple of years, and all due to speeding, so at any rate, I think Mike wanted to speak, so I'll let him take over.
Okay, thank you. Yes, last year, Nova Families for Safe Streets was intimately involved with Holly Siebel and the bills. We were down in Richmond many times and did presentations in front of the different committees of both the Senate and the House of Delegates. The issues, some of it was money grab, others was equity, and it was also an issue for Fairfax and some of the others about where the money would go, the excess funds beyond the operating cost. And there was a lot of debate about that. But that at the end was resolved. The bill that Delegate Holly Siebel proposed did get through the House of Delegates this past year, the first year it died. There's a lot of issues with the Black Caucus and the issue of equity and profiling, as you might understand from history. But it was based on data of where the crashes are, and and a lot of other restrictions as to how and when they could be applied, jurisdictional discretion. All of that recently has been thrown into jeopardy because of the LPR. ICE had gotten a hold of the data, personal information from license plates readers. It was, and I don't know, Assistant Chief Bob Blakely, rather, if you know exactly where it was. I heard it was Charlottesville, but I'm not sure. But I do know the vendor, Flock, is, and I don't know who the vendor is for Fairfax. Hopefully, it's not the same vendor. But that has caused a lot of problems, and it's really a cybersecurity. They got hacked, and this vendor has been known to be a little bit lax. So right now, in fact, just last week we had a conversation with Delegate Siebel, and we've got a plan. We're going down to Richmond in 2 weeks. We're trying to talk to various senators and House of Delegate people. It's and the whole idea is for expansion. With schools is great, but that's not really where the speeders are. I defer to our colleagues, our esteemed colleagues in the police, but they'll tell you that's not where the real speeders are. It's in residential areas and business districts. And we think that's one of the most important ways. There's lots of ways to try to improve safety on the roads. So it's a very high priority for us. But frankly, we have a long hill to climb up. And I'd be curious, Bob, if you could comment to the extent you know about this LPR.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to. So, lots of things to unpack there. Number one, we do utilize Flock LPR, and I can tell you as 28-year veteran, it's probably the greatest innovation in law enforcement in the last decade. Flock denies the allegation that their systems were hacked. They utilize CJIS compliant databases for cloud storage of data. They don't store PII. Our system, is operates like many of them. Now there's a couple other components to Flock that had some connectivity to records management systems and other things that was not LPR related. But again, they came out in May of this year and denied any allegation that their data was hacked. Now, there is a separate issue that you mentioned, which was ICE's cooperation or collaboration with Flock. So the federal government had not had any contracts with Flock Public Safety or any LPR vendor that I've been aware of. But the U.S. Secret Service and I believe Homeland Security entered into a pilot with Flock. That lasted a very short time, and I think probably 3 weeks ago, I saw an article where Flock terminated their relationship with the Department of Homeland Security. So they are no longer participating in a pilot project with the Department of Homeland Security. So there was a short relationship there where they could utilize an LPR system for public safety information, but they've since terminated that system. Now, LPR systems access the federal and state government's license plate reader, data. So the National Crime Information Center, NCIC, or in the state case, the Virginia Crime Information Network, which is known as VCIN. So if a vehicle is entered as a stolen vehicle in a federal and state database, the LPR tells us that it's stolen. Now, there is a way essentially to let LPR tell you everything. We call it a hit. So if the driver was wanted, if the license was suspended, in particular to this conversation, if there was an administrative immigration warrant, you could tell, because you're going to receive an alert in the NCIC system for that. It can be told to tell the LPR system should tell you. Now, what I can tell you, like many police departments, including us, is when we entered into our agreement with Flock, those features were disabled. And even if we wanted to receive hits from our LPR system for things like immigration or parking tickets or driver's license status, even if we wanted to, we can't, because we completely severed that side of the system for Fairfax. So every jurisdiction can make some of those operational decisions in terms of what type of data they want to see. Our data and our system is shared with law enforcement agencies. So if Fairfax County Police enters a vehicle as stolen, anyone that has access to a Virginia Crime Information Network computer terminal, so those would only be police departments, would know that there was a stolen vehicle. But that's the way that the computer systems have always worked, but now it just is trained to report the LPR data. The law changes in 2025. The General Assembly changed the law that will not allow us to share with federal or outside of the state. So back to the question about cooperation with ICE as it pertains to LPR data. Given the changes the General Assembly made, even if we wanted to, which we do not, we can't share our LPR data with federal law enforcement agencies outside of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So it says you can't share with federal or outside. Which
does that also include the speed safety camera data?
Yeah, so we don't share that data with anybody. That's just for our operational use only. But LPR is a little different, and it's a little different too for us in Northern Virginia because we border other states. So if you're in Richmond, sharing LPR data with other states probably doesn't matter much. But here we border Maryland on two different sides of the county, and so to some degree it does weaken the effectiveness of the program, but it's law enforcement sensitive data. So if I run the tag in the NCIC, I'm going to see whether there's a stolen auto or something. And there's criminal penalties attached for misusing that system. So it's not just a willy-nilly, search for your family members, any access of law enforcement sensitive information, any misuse that is could result in criminal prosecution, certainly. So
maybe, Bob, afterwards at another time we could have an offline conversation, because this is really, really critical for us. We've been getting a lot of resistance from some of the folks, especially downstate. And so the more we can understand the facts, the better, I think, because we're aligned with the same goals of using speed safety cameras to help
Yeah.
be more
Yep.
effective.
Happy to. And I'll
Thank
share
you.
some.
Okay.
I'll send some data to you, Mike. You know, we have kind of a fact sheet of our LPR system and what it has done, and what you'll see is, you know, we found dozens of missing people, and just last week, you know, we found a person suffering from memory loss who had been driving
Yeah.
around, I think, well over 18 hours, was hungry, you know, couldn't be found, and our LPR system found the person. So it is a great public safety tool.
Mhm.
And we believe that the way that we're deploying it is in certainly in the interest of our community, and I think our community largely would support the way that we're doing it, and we're really open about and transparent about sharing that information. So
Yeah, it's too
there's
bad
no
ICE did what they
misunderstandings.
did, but that's I don't want
Okay.
to.
Well,
Chris has an agenda here, and we're blowing right through his
Yeah.
agenda. So.
yeah, no, it's a very important conversation because one of the reasons we're having this meeting tonight and looking forward to hearing from you in just a moment is because we're trying to educate ourselves and prepare ourselves for continued advocacy. So it's a great conversation, but I do want to give you guys the floor so that you can go through the conversation, share the context, the updates, and then we can have a conversation about our advocacy going forward and take questions from folks. So.
Sure. So let me introduce the team then for photo enforcement. So on the call tonight, I have Major Scott Colwell, who's the commander of our traffic division, and Sergeant Daryl Estes, who runs the photo enforcement program as a whole. I think Steve Fayette was going to be on. I haven't seen him yet, but he manages the program. He's a retired police officer, spent 30 years with Fairfax County. So we have a really close-knit team. I'm happy to report to you that you know we have a very solid photo enforcement program in Fairfax County. I'm sure the team will present that to you, and then we're happy to answer any of your questions about it. Major, it's all yours.
Sure, I've talked to you guys before. I do think Steve is on here. He might be the big long number at the bottom. He was having some issues connecting earlier. Daryl Estes, who you see there, he is the sergeant in charge of the program. He's prepared a short little PowerPoint that's going to kind of go over just all of the 3 programs that we have, one for school zones, one for work zones, and then one for bus arm cameras. And then after that, we'll answer any questions you might have. So I'm going to turn it over to Daryl.
Good evening, everybody. Like you said, I'm Sergeant Daryl Estes. I'm in charge of the program. I'm going to share my PowerPoint. Let me know if you can everybody see that.
Yep.
Yeah, looks good. Thank you.
All right. Fairfax County has a speed photo enforcement program. It's been on since 2023. We have 20 school zone speed cameras in operation right now. We have 13 that are issuing violation citations. And then we have another 7 that are new. So they're still in a warning period. But they're all operational. We have 1 work zone speed camera and a pilot right now. And we have 50 school bus cameras that are operational right now. We use 3 different vendors for the school zone. We use Elevate. They use school zone cameras and the work zone speed camera pilot, which is going to be starting here on September 16th. Ultimate is the work zone speed camera that's currently in a pilot. It's a 90-day pilot, 30 days of warning with 60 days of enforcement. And Vera Mobility has the bus arm, the stop arm camera program. The process, each event captured is reviewed and verified by the vendor before law enforcement final approval. The vendor runs the captured license plates through all 50 states to determine the registered owner. They review the business rules that we set up prior to the enforcement to determine if the event meets our threshold for a potential violation. So for example, what that is, the bus arm program, as soon as the red light comes on the bus and that stop arm starts to move, technically it's a violation. But we made the business rules to where it wouldn't be a violation unless the bus arm was fully extended. Each vendor uses 2 independent groups to verify the potential violation before it's sent to us for final approval. So it's 2 different independent, separated groups of people that do this. So one person can't talk to someone else about a violation. It's totally independent viewings and verifications. How the sites are selected is this, the speed limit on it. It's got to be a reduced speed zone. So if it's a country road that's already a 25-mile-an-hour zone, it, in a school zone, it won't meet the criteria. The number of walkers going to and from the school, the volume of traffic. We do speed surveys before we deploy a camera to get those special requests by the Board of Supervisors. We had 10 cameras in operation, and one camera was taken from one site and moved to Oakton High School after the horrific crash that was there a few years ago, by the request of the Board of Supervisors. And the viability of a school zone, if it's a good school zone, if it works, and based on the equipment standards. The equipment has to fit and properly work in that. So if the street is on a curve or something like that, that doesn't quite won't quite work for the equipment. As far as the department policy, according to department, there must be 30 days of messaging, which may include but not limited to message boards, press releases, and social media, followed by 30 days of warning. And then after the 30 days of warning, the enforcement will begin. All violations are civil in nature. No points, no DMV record. Insurance companies cannot use the violation to determine rates. The speed fines are based on a tiered system. 10 to 14 miles an hour over the speed limit is $50. 15 to 19 is $75. 20 miles an hour or more is $100. The bus arm camera is a statutory civil penalty of $250. The violators are mailed a notice of violation, and a scheduled court date is on there. Violators have up to 45 days prior to the scheduled court date to pay their fine through the vendor. Within 45 days of the scheduled court date, the violator has to pay the fine through Fairfax County General District Court, which would include a $67 court processing fee. Once the violation is entered into the court system, the court fee is assessed. Enforcement starts at 10 miles an hour over the school zone speed limit of 25. Approving officers must review the school zone times and enforcement times for each school that has a camera. Per the new law that just started in July 1st, approving officers are required by law to review weekly reports created from the Guardian system, which proves that the Wink-O-Matics, the yellow lights, were operating properly at the time. So before they view it, they have to sign the log to make sure that they viewed the Guardian system report, which is generated by Steve Fayette, that's on the call as well. Enforcement starts at 15 miles in the work zones. The enforcement starts at 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. Because it was a pilot, we had a budgetary restraint. We were limited to 5,000 violations a month of the program, being a pilot. At the 10 miles an hour over, we reached the limit in 4.5 days. So the system is on a trailer. The next pilot, Elevate, will not be limited to the 5,000 violations a month because the work zone camera is already included in the existing contract. We have 10 new school zone cameras locations that are in the permit process right now. We should be getting them signed shortly to start expanding that program. 20 school zone locations are waiting to enter the process after that. So we have 10 that are ready to go for the permit, and then we have 20 after that we're working on. The bus arm camera program is planning on expanding 50 cameras at a time beginning this school year. They're already in the process of talking about that. The work zone camera can expand and possibly become mobile to be deployed in different work zones. All right, that is the end of my presentation. So I'll open up to any questions.
Great, thank you very much. I know I have some questions, but I'll see if anybody else has any that they'd like to ask at this time.
I've got one, but
Go ahead, Mike. You raised your hand too.
okay, yeah, I tried to play by the rules. Pardon me. Yeah, so thank you, Daryl. That was very good. Are these, I have two questions. Are the cameras stationary or are they mobile?
The school zone, everything is mobile, or I'm sorry, stationary. The school zone speed cameras are all stationary. If you noticed in the school zones that have the cameras, we have signs that warn about that, and they're in green boxes that are either in the center median or on the side. And the work zone is on a trailer, but it is stationary.
Okay. And then my second question is, what happens with the excess funds from generated from speed cameras, whether it's school zones, work zones, or
Any funds as far as the speed camera, the school zone speed cameras and the trailer, the work zone cameras, any of those funds are only going to be used for traffic safety purposes.
So any excess funds go back to the county for traffic safety, or go to the police, or go to where? Because this is part of the complaints we hear from the folks south.
It goes to the police department for traffic safety issues, enforcement.
Actually, just to correct that, they actually go to the board of supervisors manages that fund. So only the board has to allocate that funding, but it is earmarked only for roadway safety. So I've heard some of the board members talk about some of their particular initiatives, that they've budgeted and talked about. So it's pretty wide open what they can use, and they've limited it to that at their level. It's not statutory that way, but it's a board of supervisors.
All right, that's good. Good to know. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead and ask a couple, but don't be shy if you have questions. So I think some of us love data. So I guess I'd be curious, you indicated that you do speed studies in advance of setting up the school zone cameras. I recall a couple of years ago during the pilot, seeing, I think, a memo from Executive Arnold that had excellent data showing sort of before and after kinds of speeds. And showing reductions of 25%, and it was quite helpful. I just would be curious to see if you have publicly available data on any of the current cameras, and that's kind of essentially what I'm asking is we'd love to see what the results of these have been. I mean, have they been effective in reducing speeds? And we're not advocating for this as a revenue enhancing program, so I think what we would like to see is over time violations are going down as well. Curious if you have any either anecdotal or data to.
Yeah, I think do we post that on the website, fellas? The photo enforcement.
I think it is on there. Any of this new data that you're asking about, Chris, keep in mind that these were installed over the summer. Most of the new cameras. So the original 10, you had that data, but we had a couple schools that had summer schools, so we have a little bit from them, but we're not going to have good data now.
Okay.
Well, until a little bit from now because school just started back up.
Fair enough. Okay. So okay, we can follow up with you separately. Maybe that some of that data is already available.
Yeah, so I actually am on the webpage. If you just Google Fairfax County photo enforcement, there's a speed camera program page. And one of the charts right on there is the program effectiveness. And that was our first 10 schools that we posted. That was the data that Deputy County Executive Arnold had in one of his board NIPs.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that data is there, and we're happy to share it too. We've continued to see the school zone, program be. That's the reason we wanted to continue to do those before deployment and after deployment speed surveys, is to make sure that it actually has the intended effect, and it has really. The only time we've seen it on from a data standpoint not be effective is because it's like the average speed went from 25 miles per hour to 25.5 or something. So it's really statistically insignificant, but the needle may have moved, half a mile an hour in the wrong direction. But we don't see that as a failure. In most cases, it's a 25% reduction or something like that, which is pretty good.
And then, so reductions in speed is great. Do you have data that shows over time violations have gone down? Like, are people figuring out that?
No, they're not.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, no, the data is so from January to May of this year, we've issued over 10,000 photo enforcement tickets at the 10 original school zones. So those have been in place, well over a year at this point. And
Okay.
I really haven't seen any significant reduction at any of those locations. And you don't get ticketed until you're 10 mile or 11 mile an hour faster. So I mean, it's not like we're just barely getting you over the speed limit. So
Okay, thanks. I see Phil has his hand up, and I'm just realizing people are putting questions in the chat, so I'll try.
Oh
to
yeah,
get
sure.
those in a second. Go ahead, Phil.
Oh, thanks. So regarding that 10 mile an hour, limit, so why is it at 10 miles an hour, not like at 5 miles an hour over?
Yeah, the statute requires that.
I see. Okay. And the other thing, when you did the pilot, I wasn't sure. Did you say that you were first going to do it with 15 miles over, and then you tried it with 10 miles over, and that's how you racked up the number of
Yeah, the statute says the same thing. We always have to be 10 over, which actually a little secret is, for 20 years, our policy on using radar, we tell our cops to give a 10 mile an hour. I know you guys won't tell anyone, so I can tell you that, but
Everybody knows. I think everybody.
yeah, all right. But no, in the pilot, because we didn't have a contract and we had to enter into a temporary agreement, our procurement specialists limited. There is a fee with every ticket. There's a processing fee, so I think they wanted to limit our exposure, and so they limited the number of violations that we could process per month to 5,000. And when we did our speed survey on the Fairfax County Parkway in that work zone, what we discovered was, there's 20,000 plus violations a month. So if we use 10 miles an hour as the limit during that small window of a pilot, we would literally rack up all of our allowed tickets in 4 days. And then over that month, we're going to miss the 25, the 30 over the people that we probably would rather capture. So we, just for the sake of that pilot, we went ahead and upped it to 15 over, but no real policy decision there. It was simply we'd rather get the biggest bang for our buck in that short 60-day ticketing pilot window.
Okay, yeah, thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, but that's done now. So the Fairfax County Parkway work zone is back to our normal program, which is 11 and over.
I'm sorry, can I a follow-up question though? You said that, even though you've been given tickets, you haven't seen any reduction in the amount of speeding. That's
no, we've seen reduction in speeding, but I don't and Scott and Daryl, I mean, I look at that data every month. I don't think I've seen a significant reduction in the number of offenses. So the speeding during the work zone, the data is still better than without this program, but we still see plenty of violations. But the average speed, so if we do a speed survey, the average speed is still lower, which means that there's less violations, but there's still a lot. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, thanks.
Does that sound right, guys? I've not seen a single school zone that really had a remarkable reduction.
That sounds right. How
Yeah.
you're describing.
But I guess and maybe I misheard, but I thought if you're limited to the number of tickets you can write and you're at that maximum.
No, we
maybe
probably
that's why
confused that. I'm sorry, Joyce. We
Okay.
probably just confused that. That was just for the limited one camera pilot we did on the Fairfax County Parkway for the work zone program. We probably shouldn't have even mentioned it. It's just that was just some weird little one camera program. The school zone program has never been limited. So we've issued 10,000 tickets this year. Luckily, none of our cameras are exceeding 5,000 tickets a month. they average, 400, 500 a month for the first 10 cameras. Now the second 10 are getting ready to come online. They're in their warning period now. So then we'll have 20 school zone cameras. They can ticket as many as is out there.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. And there's a couple questions about locations, which I think we can find on that website, which I put in the chat. There's a question about Fairfax connector buses. I think that was answered, but I don't think there's any kind of speed safety camera.
No, there's no authorization for that. I saw that question as well. We can't use photo enforcement to do anything with lane blocking or anything else. We could always. They do have cameras that monitor passenger safety and driver behavior, but we could use them as evidence in a potential violation. But really, for traffic enforcement, it becomes nearly impossible to utilize those.
Okay. I've got one more. Then I see Mike. So on the work zone cameras, which are a little bit new, my recollection was that they were harder to get up and running than the school zone cameras because of permitting challenges with VDOT and signage requirements, et cetera. Maybe just technically they're more challenging. I don't know, but just curious. It sounds like maybe you've worked through those issues, and I don't know if there's a specific plan for school zone cameras. I've known for quite some time that there was a plan over a couple of fiscal years to get to 50.
Yeah.
Is the work zone program have specific goals or targets, and how are those sites going to be selected? Is that your purview, the Board of Supervisors,
Yeah.
CDOT?
So Major Colwell and his team have done an amazing job kind of breaking down some barriers with VDOT, and they really have a great program now for using FCDOT resources and VDOT resources.
Okay.
We kind of have the system worked out now to get these cameras approved. So
Okay,
we have kind of our 50 school zone locations pretty much ironed out. The next 20 are in the warning phase. They'll be online any day now. And then we have the next 21 through 30 in the permitting process and everything right now. I believe we have all 50 of those locations up there, but sometimes when we go out to do the site survey, so like when we start working on cameras 21 through 30 or 30, 31 through 40, we find out that, there's an issue with the location, or there's, we found that some of the Wink-O-Matic signs hadn't been properly permitted, and then we send FCPS back to VDOT to get proper permits. And so sometimes we run into little curveballs that just causes us to change the order or whatever, but that system's down pat. For the work zone, we were kind of testing proof of concept. We believed it would be an effective program, but we had to test the technology between the two vendors to see what would work better for mobile work zones. So I think when we get that data back here in the next few months, we're going to discuss that program. I think we told the Board of Supervisors our intention was to test and evaluate a work zone program, but we didn't really say we were going to launch it across the full county. So we probably will go back to the board in between, in a not in package sort of write up, and let them know what we found out, and then begin adding work zones if our program proves to be successful, which I believe it will. So I think that's our plan, but nothing ironed out in writing about our goals for the work zone program yet.
Thanks. Mike, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My last two questions. So the speed safety cameras, my marketing pitch there, speed safety cameras.
Yes, I like it.
Yeah, they're not Flock. They're another vendor. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
we use a vendor called Elevate.
Okay. And can we have a copy of Darrell's presentation? That was good.
Sure.
So my second question, last one, is last year down in Richmond, there was a movement to try to get stop sign cameras. And that's controversial. You think speed safety cameras? Have you looked into stop sign cameras? Is
Yeah.
that something, what's your opinion?
I don't remember stop sign. I remember the noise, the exhaust noise. Stop sign may have been on there as well. I don't think it passed the General Assembly.
No, it didn't. It actually got thrown in this,
Yeah.
some of the folks who were opposed to the speed safety cameras commingled it intentionally
Yeah.
to try to kill it.
It came up when I had to go down there to talk about some car meet legislation,
Mm.
and some of the jurisdictions around here. I think DC was one of the ones they were talking about. There was some challenges in DC, and that caused a lot of hesitation for the stop sign thing. So that played the biggest part, just challenges that other jurisdictions were having with it.
Okay, to the extent we can, again, this is an offline, we can do this later.
Sure, sure.
It will probably come back, and I'm trying to figure out how to navigate these things, what's good, what's bad, what's going to be interference. So that will be an issue again, because I know the senator who was sponsoring it, the lobbyist group is all over her, and she's going to come back and do it again.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions?
Well, Kristen, we'll keep ourselves available to you. You know, I'm grateful for the continued dialogue and relationship that we have. You know, when you look at this year, you know, traffic safety and our pedestrian and vulnerable road user safety is something that I look at often. I'm happy to report to the group that, you know, this year we're sitting at 9 motor vehicle fatalities and 5 pedestrian fatalities, as compared last year at this time to 21 motor vehicle fatalities and 7 pedestrian fatalities. We've had 0 bicycle fatalities this year, although we have had some electric scooter fatal incidents, which I don't believe are going to count as crashes. So we're going to increase some awareness and some safety. We're talking about how we can increase awareness about that, but we're looking about, you know, down 50% in fatal crashes. Our injury crashes appear to be down for the year. That's a little tough to evaluate kind of mid-year with the data and how we read treads, but I appreciate you all pushing out the treads data that you pushed out. I saw the email today. That's good information. I was reading over it this afternoon. So we look forward to the continued dialogue. We're working hard to do the same thing that you all are doing, which is to try to keep our roads safe for our community. And we appreciate any opportunity we have to team up.
Thank you.
Great.
We do. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. We think we do our best to educate, and we certainly do our best to try and change infrastructure. And you know, so we got the education and the engineering part are difficult, and if we could do better there, it would make your lives on the enforcement side easier. I feel like you're left with the mess that our infrastructure is generating. But anyway, we appreciate the partnership as well. Look forward to continuing to speak with you.